In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. Eyes they're approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with
Patrick Brower.
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 And
W. Dow Bush.
W. Dow Bush.
Del Bush. Del Bush.
Dow.
Del.
W. Del Bush.
We've only had one person mention the change in the sound quality from these new microphones we're using.
Okay.
And it was a positive comment.
That was my next question.
Yeah. But I just thought that because it's, I think, such a difference from what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
Also, for whatever reason, our levels are very different every week because we haven't come up with a specific range of where the microphones go.
Yeah.
We each change it. Like, I think yours is down far today.
Maybe. I feel like if I put it up higher, it wouldn't be directly underneath my mouth. It would be off to the side or tilted or whatever.
Yeah, but you're usually facing the side anyway.
Not always.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, if you are quieter for people today and they can't hear you as well, that's why.
Then that's a benefit. You're welcome.
I pointed it out.
You're welcome, everybody.
That's the best I could do. But I like it. I like how the sound comes across in the weekly videos.
Cool.
Which, for whatever reason, did not post to Facebook, even though they were both uploaded to Facebook.
Oof. As
I told you the other day, I spent over an hour getting those two videos on all of the platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be one thing if you just cut and paste, but so many of the, you need to have so many of the platforms give you like, oh, you need a title for the video and a description.
Mm-hmm.
And, we recommend different things, so there's slight changes.
Sure.
Then you have to put text on the video for some of the platforms, but not all of them.
Oh, okay.
So there's intricacies. And I'm sure that there's apps where I could have it post to everything at once.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's better ways to do this, but I don't like having to devote any more time or energy into the research of doing those.
Nope.
Even if it makes my life easier in the long run.
Sure.
That's why I always just want someone else to do it for me, but none of our people do that.
No.
Also, I can't help but notice that for the majority of the people that work with us, the amount of people that mentioned there was a sale was disappointing.
You mean like on their own social media channels?
They don't have to. It's not a
don't.
rule.
Nope.
But in the past, they all have.
Okay.
And I can't help but notice the sale was down this year.
It was.
Yeah.
Could be a reason.
Did you get a chance to dig into those numbers yet?
I didn't, no.
Okay. And did you get a chance to pick a comic book to...
I was going to do it tonight.
You said that yesterday.
I sure did.
All right. That's why I gave you 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And you said, I don't need 2 weeks. I'll knock it out in a couple days.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll do something tonight.
We'll still think that... I mean, it's not... You don't have to.
I'll do it.
I think it'll be fun, though.
Okay.
I think I oftentimes get big ideas while we're recording. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And then it never materializes.
Sure.
The whole idea of selling the back issues, which we talked about, is a thing that we were genuinely interested in doing.
Sure.
But the logistics of it are not in our favor.
Yeah, I mean, you investigated it, and we had a number, and the number was like, well, that's not worth doing then.
Yeah.
The end.
It's not that the number wasn't worth it. The effort wasn't worth it.
No, the number wasn't worth it because the effort was non-negotiable. So the number needed to be more than the effort, and the number was less than the effort. So it was like, well, then we're not doing it.
But we did a good job of thinning them all out.
We sure did.
And making better use of those
shelving
units. Yeah, it definitely does.
With it.
It definitely does. And the subtle, smaller changes we're making to Sidekicks little by little, like it's every time we change it, it's not like we have a final form in mind.
Right.
But every time we make a Sidekick change, it's like, oh, this is for the better, and I like this. Then there's always one more.
Right.
And I still think that Sidekicks is such a novel idea and such a, not overlooked because people love it.
Sure.
But, kids today have no idea that this is such a novelty.
Kids today.
And they didn't have it.
Sure.
We didn't have it. We didn't have a thing like that for us.
I mean, prior to Sidekicks, we just had like a little 4-foot section.
Yeah.
I think in the store, just near the front counter.
Near the counter, yeah.
Before Challengers, the stores we would work at would just have like a little waterfall rack, maybe an old school metal spinner rack. That was sort of it.
Yeah, downtown we had a 4-foot section that went up to, whatever high, 5 or 6 shelves.
I mean, I'm trying to think of what we had in Naperville. I think it was probably, again, just like a waterfall rack with a bunch of like Cartoon Network comics. Nothing special. I mean, some of that was just a product of, at the time, Scholastic wasn't publishing kids' graphic novels.
Right.
You would, again, occasionally get some stuff from Marvel and DC, but like real small digest-y size stuff to go along with the Archie digests at grocery stores and at bookstores that would have a little section of Archie digest. So everything had to be tiny to fit in there instead of the larger, more colorful, thicker graphic novel format that Scholastic started doing with Bone.
Do you remember that wrestling-themed DC all-ages book that they did?
No.
They did a mini-series about Mexican wrestling.
Okay.
It was a DC comic. It was on their kids line, whatever the kids line was called back at the time. And I specifically, it was very, a big name I think was involved in the concepts of the designs, but they were very distinct body types for the 3 main wrestlers.
Yeah.
And it was early on in Dan DiDio's tenure at the company.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at I must have been a DC RRP at the time. And it was when I first met Dan. And we were in like a round table. And it was literally a round table where it was just all the chairs were in a circle.
Sure.
And we're talking. And it was like the topic of all ages books came up. And I was sitting right next to Dan. And somebody had said, it was like Lucha something, Lucha Libre something.
I mean, I plugged in DC wrestling comic to Google, and it's given me nothing but a lot of like, here's DC artists drawing different members of AEW for a DC Comics AEW compilation.
I want to say it's something to do with Lucha and Fire. Type in DC Lucha or DC Comics Lucha.
Okay.
And the topic of all ages books came up, and somebody said, a retailer, I don't remember who, and I don't know that I would say if I did remember, they said, why doesn't DC print more?
Mucha Lucha.
Mucha Lucha. There you go.
It was based on a cartoon.
Okay. So I guess I'm giving too much credit for DC doing it.
You absolutely are. But I mean, DC published it.
But also somebody, a bigger name, did design the characters.
From the hit show on Kids WB.
So somebody said, why don't you publish more DC like all ages periodicals? And I answered and just said, because you don't buy them.
Pretty much.
And Dan looked at me and I said, how many people in this room stock Mucha Lucha? And it was maybe 2 people. I'm like, there's your answer.
There it is.
It was a good answer too.
Yeah.
And all Dan said was, yeah, that's basically it.
Yep.
The sales aren't there for these books.
Let's see if we can find out who it was. It was created by Eddie Mort and Lily Chin.
Nope, not them.
Developed by Michael Ryan, Eddie Mort, Lily Chin.
Okay, then maybe somebody big worked on the book.
Maybe.
I mean, it's obviously you can tell they were stylized designs.
For sure. DC Comic. All through written by Eddie Mort, and they don't list the creators.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder if they were just adapted. Probably not. DC does a good job at making their own things. But anyway, Sidekicks is great, and we're great for doing it. Hooray! We did it, everyone!
We did it.
Kids literacy is through the roof. All thanks to us. We briefly mentioned the sale, and I think we'll give a quick post-mortem on it. And we kind of already did. Down from last year.
Yep.
I didn't do final numbers, but I'm going to guess like $7,000 less.
Oh, I don't know if it was that much.
Well, we needed 30 less T-shirts this year than we ordered last year.
I think it was like $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah.
I think that was what we were doing.
Okay. Huh.
Because I think we had mentioned it Tuesday or Wednesday as the amount we were down was basically 30 T-shirts.
Yeah. Well, we'll look into it. I feel like it's more.
Okay.
But, 30 less T-shirts. And a good part of that is because we really tightened the reins on the rules, which we talked about it at length last week. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know that anybody expressed disappointment, and not being allowed to get the shirts, but also there's a lot of sale regulars that didn't take part this year.
Okay.
People I remember doing it every year
Okay.
that were not part of the sale. Some mail order people, some local people,
Mm-hmm.
you name it. It's a little disappointing for 2 reasons. Is A, you always want the numbers to go up every year.
Sure.
You would love the sale to be better every time.
Yeah.
B, we put a lot more effort into streamlining the whole process for everyone involved than it was effort on our part to do that, mainly your part.
Yeah.
I also had a picture I never posted of the packing station you made.
Yeah, that ended up being...
Unnecessary.
Well, it was necessary for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then it was unnecessary.
And how heads up we were in keeping boxes ahead of time.
Yep.
I mean, we'll eventually use those boxes. So
Yeah,
we
it's
still
not
have
a big
them,
deal. But yeah, it's we talked about it last week, just how a lot of things that we did over the last year felt like they were going to be useful for the sale and then ended up being irrelevant for the sale.
Yeah.
And that kind of changes your internal calculus for what is worth doing in the store.
Now, we never know how well a sale t-shirt design is going to go over.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been designs in the past that we have loved that met with a lukewarm reaction.
Yep.
And designs that we thought were fine that people absolutely loved.
Yep.
And I think Gustavo did a great design this year.
Agreed.
But we also don't give the artists a whole lot of direction.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is on purpose. We want
Yeah.
their interpretation of it. We don't want to come in with an idea for them to execute. We want them to bring their own ideas to the table.
And it's the same thing with the bookmarks. We'll say, we want the bookmark to convey the joy of reading comics.
Yeah.
And then we give them the option of doing the back as well.
Right.
Local artist Jetty Lewis is doing the next bookmark. It looks pretty great so far.
True.
In fact, we had somebody in yesterday who is a friend of Jetty's who said, oh yeah, I saw the bookmark in progress. It looks so fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we, of course, had seen it in progress as well. So that is neat. But for the sale t-shirt, we just say, it's called I Love You, but I've chosen comics. And here are previous designs.
Yeah, it's going to be white ink on a red shirt.
Yeah.
This is what you have to play with.
Hopefully the logo is on it somewhere.
Mhm.
It should say I Love You, but I've chosen comics somehow.
Right.
And
That's like the only real criteria is that it needs to say I love you, but I've chosen comics
Yeah.
somewhere on it.
And for the first, I don't know how many years, you did the designs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this year I did the backup design we wound up not using. But then we started, I don't know how it started that we started asking local artists. But
I don't recall.
Yeah.
It was probably around year 4 or 5 where we were like, hey, what if we got somebody to draw it? Because by that point we were established enough where we'd known people in the neighborhood and we had people that we could reach out to and say,
I kind
"Do
of
you
wonder
wanna do
if
this?"
one of them came to us and said, hey, do you ever want me to design a shirt or something like that?
Can't remember.
So it was Sean Dove who did our first one,
Okay.
our very first non-in-house design.
Right.
And then Ryan Brown.
Mhm.
And then it just skyrocketed from there.
A lot of fun people.
And then we did 2 of the Keep Reading Comics shirts.
Yep.
Gene Ha and Ali Cantarella did those 2.
Mhm.
And those were Kickstarter shirts.
Yep.
And that was a thing that we've talked about before where our plan was to do that every summer.
Yeah, basically to do them about 6 months apart.
Yeah.
So we would have the Kickstarter start in around Free Comic Book Day and then end, 4 to 6 weeks later. And then by the end of summer, there would be a shirt.
Right. But after the second one, it was definitely not cost effective for us to keep making shirts.
Yeah, no, it turned out to be the typical Challengers thing where the first one was a huge hit and the second one no one cared. So we
Yep.
went, okay, great.
And for those, it was just the same kind of thing. Like, hey, keep reading comics. So we always let the artist do what they want. There have been a few times where we've said, hey, can you, what about this? Can you add this? Can you,
Sure.
a little bit of direction here and there. But for the most part, it is entirely up to them.
Yeah.
And I love, I always want to do more shirts by comic creators because I think that's really fun.
It is, for sure.
And I do feel like the people that design the sale shirts,
Mhm.
I don't know how much of a return they get because they're so, we order like 100 shirts.
No,
It's not like-
any artist who's done it for us it has been a kindness that they do it. It is
Right.
not.
No, I know, but
it's not promotional for them. It's not valuable for
but
them.
I feel bad because I think that all these designs deserve a much greater
Sure.
penetration
I
in
mean,
the t-shirt market.
we would love it if people saw a design and went, "Oh my God, I've got to get that shirt!" And all you have to do to get it, beyond maybe paying $5 shipping for it, is buy a bunch of graphic novels at a steep discount. Like, it doesn't feel like that's a huge ask. And I know for some people, they're like, but I just want to buy this shirt. And it's like, think of what you're getting with this.
Yeah.
You are getting a hell of a deal. Like, we would rather you do that than just outright buy a shirt.
Yeah, and the Keep Reading Comic shirts were Kickstarted, so we knew how many to order ahead of time.
Right.
And then we'd always use whatever.
And, I mean, that was why we Kickstarted it. It was just a matter of like, we do not have the money and space to just stock a ton of T-shirt styles.
Right, but then what we would do was whatever money was made from the Kickstarter, after all fees and designs and printing, we would take that extra money and buy extra shirts to have in the store.
But it was still wanting to make sure that like the basics were covered. Like the first few years we did the sale T-shirts, we produced them beforehand because I at least liked the idea of you got the shirt. Like when you were there and you spent the money, here's the shirt. But of course, like we had no idea what size shirts we'd need, so we would get a lot of smalls and mediums and larges and few less of the extra sizes. And inevitably, by like day 6 or 7 of the sale, people would come in and qualify for a shirt, and it's like, well, here's what's left.
Yeah,
like pick one of these.
And that's a shitty way to do things.
It's not great, which is why eventually we decided, okay, no, let's do them after the sale, because it as it turns out, like while there is a convenience to you don't have to come back, the two benefits of doing it afterwards is one, you're not going to be wearing the shirt in February anyway. It's a T-shirt. You're probably not going to wear it for another few months. And then additionally, like for us at least, you have to come back to get the shirt, which means that hopefully you come back and maybe you get something. As it would turn out, we would find out for a decade, most people don't care. Like if you bought something during the sale and then you came back to get the sale shirt and you were not a regular customer, you literally just came back to get the shirt and left.
Sure.
Like, the only people who would buy extra stuff would be people who are coming in anyway to buy stuff, and they're picking up their shirt at the same time.
Why would they buy anything extra? It's not on 25% off.
That's true.
Anyway, thank you, Gustavo, for doing
Thanks,
a
Gustavo.
wonderful shirt in a very small window of time.
Yes.
And for volunteering to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
Such a good guy.
Nice guy.
Somebody who understands the value of a comic book shop and what it brings to the community. And dare I say, not just a comic shop, but a local bookstore. Someone that realizes that a local bookstore is it's a thriving member of society in your local community, because not only does it, to use the word again, build community, it gives people a place where they feel like they belong, that it's their home, that they're a part of, that includes them. It's not just this giant faceless corporation who wants your money. Would you agree?
No. Bookstore's just a bookstore.
Oh, all right. This part moves on then. All right, so the Super Bowl was in Las Vegas.
Yes. Did you go?
No. I was in Las Vegas once in my life in 2002.
If you'd gone this time, you could have seen AEW, and then you could have gone to the Super Bowl. I'm sure it's easy to do.
I mean, depending on how long you stay. No one should ever stay in Vegas that long.
No, well, I mean, the thing is, you go to AEW, I think Collision, and then you win $15,000 in the casino, and then you buy a Super Bowl ticket.
Well, if I was going to have gone to Vegas in February, it would have been right at the start of the month to be there for James Zark's wedding.
Oh, yeah.
In a Twilight Zone chapel. And James Zark, of course, did our sale T-shirt 2 or 3 years ago.
Was it last year? Was it not last year?
No, it was not last year.
And I guess 2 years ago. Then.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Okay.
Last year was Casey Iris.
Yep. Okay.
And her character, Red. So someone had posed a question in a group about they had a statistic of how much extra tourism revenue was brought into Vegas for that weekend. And somebody said, hey, all you Vegas shops, especially those close to the Strip, how was business?
Torpedo? Isn't Torpedo one of them?
I mean, Torpedo is in Vegas. I don't know where it is, but it's also...
Ralph Macchio? Is he the Las Vegas guy?
Alternate reality.
Yeah.
And Was it the Jesse James stores? I can't remember there's more.
Okay.
But the question was like, how are sales?
Did you see any benefits from the Super Bowl?
And the answer?
No idea. Could go either way. I have no guess.
I'm going to say it again, but just give me the first word you said. Any guesses?
No.
Correct. The answer was no.
Yeah, we had a brief discussion with somebody this week who had recently gone to a pop-up event at, I can't remember, a restaurant or something. And they had asked us if we had thought about doing those, and Patrick and I very quickly recounted the many times we've done pop-ups at places and found them to be of literally no value. Like, we lost money doing them almost every time. And a lot of that is just because the people who are in certain places, like if you're at a convention or if you're at a comic shop, you're in a mindset where you're like, I'm going to buy comics. If you just happen to randomly be in a place and comics are there, it doesn't mean comics are going to sell. Oftentimes it means the opposite, because people are like, I didn't come here for this. Like, I didn't, like if you set up at a movie theater, I know stores have occasionally in the past done well with like, oh, the new Spider-Man movie opened, so we set up a table and we sold Spider-Man comics. But like what we've always found is people show up and they're like, well, I have my arms full of popcorn and soda, so I'm not going to buy something right now because I got nowhere to put it. And then when I leave, I'm not going to stop at this table. I'm just going to leave.
Yeah. You would think that, oh, it's better to get it on the way out.
Right. Like that was the thing that I would think about when Grant Morrison, once upon a time when he was doing All-Star Superman, was like his dream for All-Star Superman was there would be a display of All-Star Superman graphic novels at the register at the theater that's showing the new Man of Steel movie. And it's like, that would never sell. Like, that's why you don't see that stuff in movie theaters. You don't see movie soundtracks and novelizations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If that stuff worked, if it worked at all, you would see multiple companies paying to get their product placement in there. It doesn't work because that's not what people want.
Maybe someone missed the idea. Maybe there should be a small gift shop near the exit of movie theaters that sells branded merchandise for whatever movies are in the theater.
You hear that and you're like, well, that seems like sensible. It seems like a thing you would do. But again, I got to think that the reason why you're not seeing it at AMC's, Regals, whatever, is because someone tried it or did the math and went, it doesn't work.
And also, they never are heads up enough to get the product out in time for the release of the film.
Yeah, and additionally, like when you're thinking about it in terms of like your local AMC or Regal, they would have to staff that. You couldn't self-serve that. There'd have to be at least an employee there to make sure people weren't walking off with stuff. And if you've gone to a movie theater, at least in Chicago over the last 2 years, no one's working there.
Yeah.
Like as few people as possible are working there.
Yeah, it's all automated now.
Like the Regal by Challengers, the City North, they have a ticket kiosk, the usual like row of tellers that would, sell you a ticket for a movie. There's a screen with all the movie times. That thing's been empty for like at least 2 years. There's never anyone working in there.
Sure. Everything
Everything you do is either at like a little self-serve kiosk on the app, or the person who would tear the ticket can maybe do something. Or like now the concession stand will also sell you tickets. So the people working the concession stand now have to do both jobs because they're not going to pay two different people when they can just pay one person to do twice as much work.
Well, it used to be when they got rid of the the tellers in the lobby, you could get tickets if you didn't use the kiosk right at the self-help desk right around the corner when you walk in.
Yeah.
But that's never staffed anymore either.
Nope. So yeah,
As you found out whenever you needed to go tell someone about a projector breaking down
or the lights coming on in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
Because there's no one to be looking at that. You have to go out and report it. There's no one just like in the booth or walking by.
Dell's very good at that. Dell's very good at being the one to jump up and run to the front to say, this is broken.
Yes. I mean, there's another thing that I've always done, which is...
Unfortunately, he taps their heart when he says it.
I do, really hard.
This is broken.
1-inch punch.
And then they're like, oh, it is broken. Then they're emotionally devastated and cannot do anything to fix the lights in the theater.
Oh, man, is that why they never get fixed?
Yeah, well, because you say this is broken, you hit their heart.
I do, yeah. I will also always get up and close the doors to the theater because sometimes they don't close those when the movie starts. And the light comes in, ambient noise comes in, and I'm like, no. Let me close these
That
doors.
is a big difference between you and I because I have much lower standards to the quality to which I'm watching a frame ratio of a thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a snob about it, but I definitely feel like, look,
I'd say a stickler.
I'm paying money to be in this theater. I want the best I can get from this theater. I don't need them to like adhere to a standard above what they're capable of.
I don't want anyone to take away from this riveting Dakota Johnson's performance that I'm going to sit through.
Dakota Johnson is genuinely entertaining in at least 60% of Madam Web.
Oh, look, I just said that because I knew we could talk about the movie that we just saw.
You liked it.
I had a great time watching that movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it deserves all the horrible reviews it's getting. I read a review yesterday that was
movie, but I don't think it deserves the horrible
2
reviews.
out of 10.
Yeah, that's too low.
That's way too low.
I think it's better than Morbius, but it's still a movie that, at its core, is very confused about what it's trying to do.
Oh, for sure.
Incredibly confused in its sense of like needing to devote a ton of time to backstories for characters that don't appear in the movie and set up future franchises instead of like nailing down what it's trying to do in this movie right now. And yet there's a middle section where 4 characters are really charming together, and I'm like, why is this not the whole movie? Why are you doing anything besides this? This is the part that works.
Or just a buddy paramedic movie.
Yeah. Adam Scott and Dakota Johnson, again, have really fun chemistry. Dakota Johnson's a good actor and has chemistry with a bunch of different characters in the movie, and yet the movie is constantly like sequestering her away from them or making her say incredibly dumb things about plots that, again, frequently don't appear in this movie. It's very, very confused about what it wants to do. I wish in some ways it had not even been a Spider-Man Cinematic Universe movie. I wish they'd stripped all that stuff off and just done a weird pseudo horror movie about Dakota Johnson having future sight and needing to save 3 impetuous teenagers from a killer.
I do believe
just do that.
I believe it's called Sight Beyond Sight.
Sure, call it that.
I said Sight Beyonce, so we're clear.
There's a giant Beyonce ad in the movie.
That's true.
Because it's 2003 and Beyonce had an album.
Why is it 2003? I don't
Again,
know. No reason.
like-
You know why? So Adam Scott could call and leave a message on an answering machine.
Yeah.
That's why.
And also just so they could have someone reading a newspaper, which is a crucial point in the movie.
Yeah.
A newspaper that's printed very fast, very quickly.
Faster than I think newspapers can possibly be printed.
But no, it's not a movie I would necessarily ever recommend in any way, but
It's also not a superhero movie.
it's really not. And that's the other incredibly weird thing about it is it's like, so there's three kinds of movies being produced. There's Marvel Studios, there's Warner Brothers Discovery, and then there's the Sony Spider-Man movies. And they each have their own like unique identity. Like the Marvel movies are very like grounded in their way, you know, regular people, kind of quippy, very fun, light adventure.
Yeah.
The DC movies are real like gods among men, you know, the unknowable. Like even Batman is like a creature of myth, basically. In weird designed worlds, Metropolis and Gotham City, and you're not in New York, you're not in the world outside your window, you're in this weird other thing. And then you have the Sony Spider-Man movies, which are basically like horror adjacent garbage, is kind of the genre they're operating in. Like Venom, Morbius, Madam Web, they're all like kind of goofy, not great horror movies that then are also briefly superhero movies, kind of, if you squint, but they're not really committed to that at all. Like, there's very little that makes Venom a superhero movie other than Venom fought Spider-Man in the comic books. Like, it's basically just like a kind of goofy horror film.
Yeah. As is Morbius.
As is Madam Web. I mean, so many of the visually distinctive parts of Madam Web are just PG-13 Final Destination. Some loud noise happens, and then she gets a future sight, and people get murdered, and then she's like, how will I undo the people getting murdered? While still hearing the very loud noise. That's it.
You did seem to like the loud noises.
I mean, it was just... I definitely thought they were funny at a point, because it felt like her special power was generating sudden loud noises. Because that seemed to happen more than the future sight.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a PG-13 horror movie. Where they happen to say some names where you're like, isn't that a Spider-Man thing? That's it.
Just real subtle references to the Spider-Man universe without ever putting a bow on it. But also can't line up at all based on their own timeline.
No, again, they wanted to do some really bizarre 20-year-in-the-past prequel, but then doing that makes kind of no sense. Yeah, very weird. It feels like a prequel to a different Spider-Man universe. Like maybe this is a prequel to the Amazing Spider-Man films.
Okay.
Who was that guy?
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield. Yeah, maybe it's a prequel to those.
Or Peter Parker. I'm not sure which one you wanted.
Andrew Garfield. Peter Parker, I remembered. Yeah, I think it's a prequel to those. Let's just say that, because that would make some sort of sense.
Then there weren't enough Kurt Connors references.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, any.
No, not a single one.
No.
What a loss. Maybe in the director's cut. Maybe they'll also put in a post-credit scene.
No post-credit scenes.
No,
I thought I'd read that there was one. I didn't check my app ahead of time, and I don't get any reception in the theater.
Well, you just sort of assume at this point. It's like the standard for superhero films.
Yeah.
It's like there should be a little stinger, like mid-credits or post-credits, to either set up another film or pay off a thing.
From the Web Slingers?
That would be cool.
Wasn't Maddie Franklin one of them?
No, I don't think so.
I feel like she was.
I don't think so.
At a different point. Somebody took over the Ricochet identity. After it was Peter Parker, somebody else took it over, a pre-existing Marvel character.
Okay.
Don't remember who. I guess it'd be too on the nose if Maddie Franklin took over another Peter Parker identity.
Yeah, I have no idea who Ricochet would have been.
Someone, though.
I could look it up, but I do not care.
You were way more interested in Mucha Lucha?
Yeah, well, that was
that
that one. I'm like, I don't remember that. But like trivia about Spider-Man spin-off characters. No
The
thanks.
Slingers.
Yeah.
The Slingers or Web Slingers?
It was the Slingers. One of the things.
Can you name all four of them?
Ricochet, Dusk. There was like a armored one. I want Prodigy. Was Prodigy one of them?
I can't remember any of them.
Well, now I'm looking it up, Patrick.
I couldn't even do Dusk now.
You went too
All I
far,
had
and
was
now I got to
Ricochet.
look it up. One of the interesting things about the Slingers first issue, I don't know if you remember this, but they did the Team Titans thing, where it was the same comic, but the middle section was a different like
Slinger.
origin of the Slinger. So like you'd get the first chunk and the last chunk would be the same
But wait,
across
what do you
all
mean
four
origin
copies.
of the Slinger? They were all Peter Parker. That
And
was the
then-
gimmick
Well, that was the gimmick originally,
initially.
but then it wasn't. Slingers
Across
Marvel.
the four Spider-Man titles. Nothing at all to do with the Return of Superman. Not like it wasn't influenced by that at all, I'm sure.
Ricochet, Hornet was the one I couldn't remember. Dusk
Okay.
and Prodigy.
Okay.
It was written by Joe Harris and created by Adam Polina and Chris Cross. Let's see who else was Ricochet. Thank you, Wikipedia. Johnny Gallo was the second one.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a third one. I'm not seeing anything about there being an additional one. Maybe you're thinking of
Hornet? Was it Cassie Lang? Was Cassie Lang Hornet?
I want to say no. Because she was...
Stature.
And Stinger, I think she was the next one. After that.
Oh, okay. Stinger.
Fictional character biography. Scotty McDowell was one. Then Peter Parker, and then Eddie McDonough.
These aren't even alliterative names. They don't belong in Marvel canon.
Silas Burr.
And they're all men.
And then Hobie Brown.
Okay, at least one.
Yep, Hobie Brown was during the
You
King
know,
in Black.
Spider-Punk.
During the King in Black storyline, Hobie Brown is shown to have taken up the alias of Hornet himself during the symbiote invasion. There you go.
I'm sorry, I
What
don't know
trivia?
who Dusk and Prodigy were.
Oh, who cares?
More like, who cares about taxes, am I right?
I do.
You are not giving me anything.
I'm sorry. I don't care about taxes.
Well, you should. It's an important part of our business.
Okay.
But
Lesson learned.
You never have to worry about it.
Thanks.
One of the things about taxes as a corporation is that all of your business partners need to get you all of your tax forms by
March.
January 31st.
Sorry.
Because
Not
as
my
a
part of the
corporation, your taxes are due
January 32nd.
March a month before human person taxes are due.
Yes.
So we have to get ours done early. And preparing everything for our accountant, I like to have PDF versions to send in early and printed versions to bring in as a backup. And one of the ways I make sure I have everything is I dig out last year's taxes and see all the forms I brought in and to see what I'm still missing. And I'm missing a form from Shopify.
Okay.
Now, if I'm missing a Square form, okay. If I'm missing a 1099K from eBay, fine. You know, we know how to generate what our sales were for those platforms.
Sure.
Shopify, though, is the basic sum total of our business.
Yeah, there are point of sale register in all of our online sales.
Yes, as one. So we don't have the 1099K from Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's weird. Did I miss it? It's possible I missed it, but I tend not to miss these things. So I go looking, and sure enough, I find 2022s, 2021s, no 2023. Like, why is there no 2023? And when I say I go looking, I mean I go looking on the Shopify platform, not through my records.
Sure.
Because they didn't give us one.
Okay.
Even though the forms are due by January 31st,
Mm-hmm.
Shopify
It was 2 weeks ago.
has some sort of, I don't know what the word is,
Data problem?
extension,
Mhm.
legal extension, so they don't need to give it to us until this year, February 29th.
Okay.
Our tax appointment is before that.
That's not great.
And I wonder, I mean, we have our recorded sales and
Yeah.
our recorded taxes
We have
and our
numbers.
recorded breakdowns,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't have a legal document to back it up.
Right.
And what happens if we go have our taxes done and we have all the numbers and there's a discrepancy in the final form,
Mhm.
which I guess isn't a consideration unless we get audited.
Right, and I think you can, don't you have a certain amount of time where you can edit your...
Yeah, I guess so.
Taxes,
I
you
just
can
don't
say,
want to have
"Oh,
to worry
this-"
about extra effort.
Of
And I
course,
thought,
I wouldn't either.
how is that fair? Because that fucks up everybody who uses Shopify as a platform, which, to my knowledge, not a small number.
Right. And I mean, the idea that, well, you'll have 15 days to do your taxes now feels like it's, I mean, there's businesses way bigger than us that are probably going to be like, it's going to take longer than that.
And I feel like the size of Shopify's customer base is why they have an extension.
Yeah.
Or, what is the word that I want? Abstention? No, because that means you're not
Exception?
doing it at all. I already said exception. Or I guess extension. Anyway, why they don't have to get it to us on time. But
Exemption?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, all those words work to an extent, but it's not what I was thinking of.
Okay.
Which, of course, may be a made-up word.
Probably.
Probably a made-up word in Italian.
Yeah. You would know.
Definitely would. Buongiorno. So that's a very annoying statistic that I have to worry about, is not a statistic, it's just not having a form and seeing if that's okay. However, I know for a fact we had that form on time last year.
Yeah. Weird.
What is also weird is that last Wednesday, which would be February 7th,
Yep.
on that day, we received from FedEx, or from Lunar via FedEx, all of the books that went on sale the following Wednesday of February 14th, which was this week.
Okay.
So a full 7 days early.
Yep.
Technically 6 if you put your DCs out a day early, which we do not.
Mm-hmm.
So we got those books a full 7 days early.
Yep. It was great.
This week, we don't have next week's DC books yet.
Nope.
And they haven't even issued tracking yet,
Yep.
which means the earliest we'll get them is Saturday, which I really hate having to work on check-ins on a Saturday.
Hard day to do it.
Yeah, and it's happened to us once before. And if I recall, also a holiday Monday weekend.
Weird.
Because Monday's a technical holiday?
Yes.
It's President's Day.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how many people get that day off. I don't know if UPS is off for the day.
No idea.
I'm sure the post office doesn't work on that day.
A bunch of our vendors are closed.
Yeah, it's weird. It's such a weird thing to be in retail and have so many holidays. And quite frankly, we need the holidays because then people come in to shop a little bit more.
Maybe.
When they have time on their hands, we do
That's a
a little better some Monday holidays and whatnot, but at the expense of our regular weekly schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And we're already in an industry where you cannot plan when you're getting deliveries.
No.
Because at best, if you follow tracking, you know what days they're scheduled to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But how about last Friday, a week ago Friday, when UPS that would have had all of that week's Penguin Random House books just didn't come.
Yep.
And then at about 5:10, while checking the tracking, we get a notice that business was closed, unable to deliver, which is
in the afternoon.
100% a lie.
Yep.
Because we were still open until 6 o'clock.
Yep.
And that is usually the case of a fill-in UPS driver who is getting a little behind on their route, so they just cancel some of them and make better time, and then get rewarded by their supervisors for finishing so fast.
Right.
Which is what we've heard from regular UPS drivers.
Yep.
So if you are a store that needs a second person to check things in, or a third person, or whatever, how big you are, you need to know when to have staff there, when it's going to be there. We can't even predict time of day,
right,
or day of the week, and it varies so much.
Yeah.
And it's just that tiny little frustration in the grand scheme of comic book retail, because there's no consistency in deliveries.
Nope.
Ever since the explosion of the distribution market.
Yes.
And I know we've mentioned it before, but
it's still a pain.
It's still a pain, and there's not even a plan. Like that's just the way it is.
No, get used to it.
There is not even nobody even cares about trying to fix it.
No.
Because you can't. Each distributor is small. Well, that's not true.
No.
Penguin Random House is massive.
They are.
And even though they were not allowed to buy Simon & Schuster, I wish they were. Just to unify communication across some channels.
That would be great. What a good idea.
Just a handful. Not all of them, just one or two. So it's annoying, and it's a fact of life. But that is kind of how we sum up comics retail. Aside from shooting yourself in the foot and then crawling away from help.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dara O'Brien. Something else that is annoying and a normal facet of the business we're in. Technically not comics retail, but still, we have these lovely windows designed by Chris Giarusso with a little hat tip by Jacob Shabat.
Yep.
And we make prints of them. We sell them in groups of 3s. They always sell incredibly unevenly.
Correct. Because there's different characters on it. Sometimes people are like, I just want the Spider-Man one, or I just want the Batman one.
Sure. People don't buy them in groups of 3.
No. There's a price break, but we don't require it.
So we constantly run out of some and not others, and it's time to reprint. So I did an inventory of what we needed, and I went to our usual printer for these things, and this happened last time, and I remember getting into a discussion with them about it. But, there's minimums you can get per piece. Fine. So we have 10 prints altogether. 9 window prints in groups of 3s, and then 1 print, which is the 2 door images. Your Giant Man Power Pack, your Galactus Doctor Who.
Right.
So 10 prints. And the printer we use, it's a very easy reorder system. Click a button if you want. Fine. Well, to reorder the minimum number of all 10 prints comes to just under $300. Okay?
Okay.
Not a terrible price. To ship them is about $275.
Seems like a lot.
Which is virtually doubling the price of the prints.
Yep.
And the reason is they don't bundle shipping. Each individual print counts as one order.
Which is ridiculous.
Right. It would be if you ordered from us, let's say a stack of 15 comics, and we package them all individually to go to the same address.
And then charge you $6 shipping for each one.
For each one, yeah. And I remember asking them, why is this? And they just said, because. Well, why can't you pack it together? Even if we packed it together, it would still be the same shipping amount.
It definitely would not.
No, it wouldn't.
That's not how it works.
The amount of space you leave in the boxes and how much packing material you use, you could easily have fit. And let's face it, and this is a visual thing you can't see, listener, but the stack of prints we would get would be like this.
Yeah,
right?
it would be
5-6 inches
yeah,
maximum.
not high.
That fits into one of their boxes.
Yeah.
They just don't combine shipping, and it is so incredibly frustrating.
It's so dumb.
We are not spending as much on the product for the shipping.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So it's a matter of finding someone else to do it, but let's face it, there may be some copyright issues with some of these prints, even though they are technically images that we've commissioned and paid for.
Right.
We don't own. We have the rights to a bunch of the characters.
People get prints made up all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to be a huge deal. Again, the issue we've sometimes run into at FedEx office around the corner is that we'll sometimes get things printed up for in-store and it uses copyright characters because we're advertising for their products in the store. Like the front counter display of upcoming releases has covers from Marvel and DC and Dark Horse and Image, and those are all copyrighted. But we are specifically using those to say, please order these products from us so that we can carry them.
So we can order them from their individual publishers.
It's purely promotional, but FedEx sometimes is like, well, these are copyrighted. Do you have a release? And now what they do is they basically make us sign a release saying, we are authorized to do this, and therefore, since we're telling you that it's okay to do this, if Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image tries to sue you, we've indemnified you from it. Like, you are not responsible because we told you that we had the okay to do this. And that's really all most places want. It's just you saying that this is your responsibility, not theirs.
Yeah, fine. Great. Happy to do it. And even the... Well, never mind. That was a whole different thing entirely. So we'll just skip it.
Okay.
And move on to after the speculation of Marvel and DC reprinting all of their crossover books, the actual information has come out.
Yes.
What is happening? DC is printing 2 omnibuses of all the Marvel and DC crossovers.
I'm gonna buy.
One specifically of all the individual crossovers: Superman versus Spider-Man, Batman versus the Hulk, X-Men Teen Titans.
Yeah, all of the 70s, 80s, early 90s stuff.
Punisher Batman, Batman Punisher, Green Lantern Silver Surfer, Galactus Darkseid, all that stuff.
Right.
All that stuff in one $150 omnibus, which is, let's face it, awesome. Wonderful to be back in print.
Yeah.
Interesting that it's DC who's doing it, but
yeah,
fine.
So it's a little weird because I feel like there's things that are not included in there because they're
I went looking and I couldn't remember anything else that was not there.
So here, what do they have?
Because they give you the list, but it's a random order.
Well, it's alphabetical. The DC versus Marvel Omnibus collects Batman Captain America, Batman Daredevil, Batman Punisher Lake of Fire, Batman Spider-Man, Daredevil Batman, Darkseid versus Galactus, The Hunger #1, DC Special Series number 27, Green Lantern Silver Surfer, Hulk versus Superman, Uncanny X-Men New Teen Titans, Marvel Treasure Edition number 28, Punisher Batman Deadly Knights, Silver Surfer Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman, Superman versus Amazing Spider-Man, and Superman Fantastic Four. So, like, I'm sure there's stuff in here.
The only thing that I didn't hear was Batman Hulk.
I think that's one of the
Treasury editions or
it must be
super specials.
Yeah, because I want to say that it was mentioned that, like, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez is in here.
Okay, and that's his.
That's his. So that's one of the 2 omnibuses, and the other one is the Amalgam Age Omnibus, which has DC versus Marvel 1 through 4, which means it's got the DC published issues and the Marvel published issues. DC Marvel All Access, Unlimited Access. But then this is the weirdest part. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of the Amalgam comics. They did 2 years worth, and I think they did like at least like 24.
I do not remember and could not.
Because there's definitely ones in here they don't have. Like, they don't have the second Spider-Boy one, which was like the Legends of Spider-Boy or something, whatever it was called. It was the Jose Ladron Legion of Superheroes Guardians of the Galaxy one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. JLX, I think. Yeah, it doesn't have JLX.
I don't think I
here.
could have, even if you gave me a list of multiple choice, told you what Ladron's first name was.
So it seems like it's got the Amalgam Age one specifically does not have everything. It's got the 3 Versus miniseries, but then the selection of Amalgam stuff is just, it's like half of it. I don't think it has, what was the Storm one called? Amazon? Yeah, Amazon. Doesn't have Amazon. So yeah, very, very weird that it's got not all of the Amalgam comics, which makes me wonder if it feels like there is a second half of this that like Marvel's going to publish. That Marvel's going to do their Amalgam issues. Or maybe not. Maybe this is all they could get the rights to, and it was like, well, Marvel owns their Amalgam stuff, and they're not going to publish it. So, but you need to get their cooperation to make this work.
Yeah. And when you think about the bigger omnibus publisher between the two publishers, it's Marvel. True. Marvel's way faster and more prolific with omnibus publishing.
Yeah. But again, maybe it's just a thing where Marvel will be listing theirs later. This is all stuff that comes out in August. It FOC's May 12th, although I think we can order them now. I don't know if it's on Managed Comics yet. Yeah, they both come out August 6th. They're both $150, and they each have 2 different covers.
That's the thing that I'm a little worried about is them both coming out on the same day, because I feel like there's going to be some pretty significant orders
and overlaps. I mean, very few people I think are just going to say, I only want the first one or I only want the second one.
I only want the first one.
And yet, conversely, I only want the second one.
Well, there you go.
Therefore,
so we are one person.
Collectively, we've just balanced it out. I don't. I'm interested in some of the 80s stuff, but like I read all those 90s ones. I don't care. The Amalgam stuff is interesting to me, but that's about it.
You were the perfect Amalgam age.
I really was, yeah. That came out, I think, when I was in high school, so it was the perfect time to have a bunch of super nerdy referencey stuff. Maybe I was out of high school by then. I don't know. What year was it?
I don't know.
96, something like
that? 2003, because Madam Web had just started to get her powers.
No, it was like 94, I think. I think I was still in high school. Anyway. But yeah, that was...
It's tough, because normally there's a specific schedule for age in high school, but yours is off by 2 years.
Yeah. Eventually it was only off by 1 year. Yeah, I think we had talked about this. When you had found out it was omnibuses, I think you were immediately less enthused.
Correct.
As a reader and collector, not
I think
as
we could sell
necessarily a retailer.
Way more of a $50 softcover.
You're probably right, although I feel like...
We do only have to sell a third as many, though.
It's true, and I think this is... I wonder if this is just a factor of they don't necessarily overprint things like omnibuses. And this is maybe something much like the JLA Avengers Hero Initiative thing, where they the deal is kind of a one printing sort of situation.
Maybe, yeah.
This is not, we're going to print a ton and have them to sell for multiple quarters. I think this is probably what orders we get is what we print, and then that's done, and we take our money and we split it.
Do you think we should make a push to sign people up for these? And then question 2 is, do you think we need to take deposits? So I don't like taking deposits.
No, but I mean, the concern obviously is people getting in $300 worth of hardcovers in one day.
Right.
And being like, oh, I can't get this right now. And it's like, well, we had to pay for it yesterday.
So we can make it abundantly clear to everyone the exact, like, here's the release date. You have to pay for them the week they come out.
Right. So I think maybe what we can do is we could do that. Obviously, yes, I would like to do a push in the store. And I think it's maybe something once they're in the catalogs and we know we can sign people up for them. Yeah. Here you go. So we've got some time. And again, they don't FOC until May 12th, which means we could maybe do a thing at Free Comic Book Day and do like a display and be like, hey, you can prepay for them right now and we will get them for you. For subscribers, I'm not really worried about it, although I would maybe consider us saying we are going to invoice you the week they come out. You are going to get a $300 invoice that Wednesday.
Fair. I mean, I think invoicing just that item alone is fine.
Just those two. Because we can easily do that in Managed Comics. You just flag a couple items and go invoice. And then for people who are not regular subscribers, maybe we can think about doing some sort of deposit or something. That's harder to do. I don't really know how we would do that. So I guess it really depends on who it is. It'll be a case-by-case basis. I don't think we're going to have a blanket policy so much as, I don't know who you are and you've never shopped with us before, so I'm going to ask you to put down a deposit. But
can we create an item in the system that's just the DC Marvel crossover omnibus deposit?
Yeah, probably.
And then just remember to take that amount off when there's comes in.
Again, it's just a matter of remembering to take that off later, which is what makes it complicated, because we could be taking a deposit in April for an item that comes out in August. And then we got to remember, who was that?
And that's also the thing, like, oh, we got the money back in April. We need to keep that money aside so we don't spend it before August.
The $50 we took as a deposit or whatever. Yeah, a little more complicated, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely a situation where I'm like, this is excellent. We can sell a ton of these. We're going to have a massive bill that week.
Oh, yeah.
And it's lunar, so it's a
Yeah, you're right.
it's a 7-day window. It's not a 30-day window.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I think at the very least what we're probably going to tell people is like, hey, if you're pre-ordering this, you are going to get billed for it the day it comes in. That's just what's going to happen. Like, normally not a big deal. Like, even the Omnibus, where we had like 5 people down for it, and not all of them have bought it yet. Not a huge deal. But this, yeah, I mean, I can definitely see us in the double digits for these books.
Yeah.
Based on how hard to find a lot of those crossovers are and how likely this is to be something that is a limited time item, where if you don't pre-order it, you might not be able to get it, and it's going to skyrocket on the aftermarket. Like, I don't get a lot of omnibuses. I could probably count the half dozen that I have. I'm probably going to get it.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It's like 14.
9.
It's like a dozen. It's
10.
It's like 14.
11.
It's like 14.
What do I have? Less than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.
Yeah. Good for you.
It's still sealed.
Yeah, most of mine are still red.
The only reason my Gotham Central is open is because Michael Lark signed it.
There you go.
That's all. Shout out to the band Ready for Death, who on a recent Salt Shed Fret 12 video, an interview about the band, lead singer Artie White was wearing a Keep Reading Comics shirt designed by Gene Ha that he got from Challengers.
The COVID one.
Yes, the very first one. And talked about it at the beginning of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to club member Damon for pointing that out to us. And Artie for both of them for shopping with us for years.
Thanks, guys.
But it was great that Artie was wearing it in his fancy video interview.
Yeah.
For the history of the
very
band.
Fancy.
And we probably will not put any Ready for Death music in this episode because there's always weird music rights with podcasts.
Sure. Why risk it?
Why risk it? But it's it was neat to have seen, and it's always cool to see people that like Challengers showing that out in the world.
Thanks.
And thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.